everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going through the 7 books that completely define my reading taste. I'm newish to YouTube, so if you're brand new here, this video should give you a good idea of whether our reading tastes are compatible. Is my recommendation of books going to be up your alley? Let's find out. I'm cheating massively. Couldn't pick 7. Across all the genres I read, could not pick 7. So I picked 7 fantasy books and 7 romance books that I think hopefully capture a little bit about my reading taste, what I like, maybe some inclination of what I don't like. And if you like any of these books, let me know in the comments how similar are our reading tastes. And if they're super similar, please give me your recommendations below if there's a book I don't have on this list that you think I will love. Have a feeling this might be a slightly longer one, so go grab a hot drink, get cozy. It is the middle of summer, but I am a cozy girly, so get a blanket, I guess. And we're gonna lock in, we're gonna dive straight in with the fantasy romance books. I will put timestamps in the description of the video if you're just interested in seeing the romance ones. To absolutely zero people's surprise, I'm gonna start with Blood and Steel by Helen Scheurer. In this, I'm counting the entire Legends of Thesmar series. I'm also gonna kind of count Ashes of Thesmar, but this one specifically actually I think aligns a bit closer to my personal reading taste. God, why did I pick this one? I wonder. This is one of my favorite series of all time. This is so delicious, tasty. I actually have a whole video talking about this series and the reading order for Helen Scheuer's Thesmar Worlds and what I recommend you do and all the different editions that I have. This one I think really defines my reading taste in my love for many different elements actually, but mainly like the gritty, dark, shadowy fantasy world and the reluctant, forbidden-esque romance. If you're watching this and haven't read Blood and Steel, it's 2026. I've been banging on about this for like a year and a half. You definitely should have read this by now. My favourite element in I guess the whole Thesmar world, but specifically this one, I love the warrior female archetype character that we have in this, in Thea. That is a running theme throughout every single one of these books. Maybe bar one, is that I love a female lead character that is some kind of warrior, whether they're a fighter or they work with poisons or they work with assassins and shadows. Any strong female lead, I am eating it up. But especially when that is combined with a gritty, dark, gory, bloody storyline and a world full of war and struggle. A perfect combination exists, and it's exactly that for me. I also feel like the balance of fantasy and romance in all the things I'm going to say to you are pretty much the same in every one of these. I personally find myself leaning towards fantasy romance books that are probably 60 to 70% fantasy and then like 30, 35, maybe 40% romance. I do read things that are definitely more centered in romance with a fantasy setting, but I particularly love fantasy romance. How many times can I say that phrase in this video? That has a really strong fantasy foundation and that the romance almost just acts as a really nice little subtle element to the plot. This is exactly it for me. This is exactly what that does. You're gonna see that. I won't mention it in all of these books, but looking at the list I have in front of me, pretty much all of them have that balance of some kind. Maybe it's 72-28, but like pretty much all have a similar 70-30 split in my opinion. The romance in this one, there is spice. All of these books have spice in them, but again, it is not a kind of main feature of the book. It is just a nice juicy added extra, maybe after like a big battle or they've just conquered something. And that slow burn, there is nothing I love more in this world than a slow burn romance. I want them maybe to be kissing by the end of book 1, maybe the odd spice scene, but I want it to be slow. I want it to be juicy. I want it to be worth the wait. I want it to take time. I want there to be reluctance. That is what I want. Maybe there's one exception in this list where it's not quite that. I love Blood and Steel. This, when I read it last year, sent me on a bit of a warpath for trying to find other fantasy worlds that felt like this, that had that shadowy darkness, that had that kind of element of evil to the story. Oh my god. Every single one of these books, bar 2, I read after Blood and Steel. This is good. It's a good job I mentioned this first. I think this set the precedent for the type of fantasy romance that I want to read nowadays. This book did it all. I could talk about this for hours. I am going to put it back on the shelf. I can talk about some of the other books that I'm sure you want to hear about, but this is probably the most defining. Maybe there's one more, but this really is it for me. These are in no particular order, by the way. I am kind of just jumping around and I'm going to try and not repeat myself too much, which means that I might say similar things about some of these books. They define my taste for a reason, which means that some of these have similarities. If you like any of these on this list, I think you will like the rest of them. Next up, we have another kind of more recent favourite. I did read this last year before it came out. This is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. Again, the thing with this, all of these, just assume all of these have fantastic world building. Assume all of these these have a slow burn romance. Assume most of these are somehow embedded within, again, an element of forbidden or an enemies to lovers or something that is really what I eat up nowadays. This one, actually, what I'm going to take from this one as defining my taste is the element of the monstrous in the world. Not only in like the physical creatures, the monsters that are infected with a mystical disease in this world that makes them A, absolutely terrifying, and B, you cannot reason with them. Like, the fear I had reading this book was so intense. This was so descriptive for me. I could picture this world incredibly well in my brain, specifically locations that we spent quite a lot of time at, like Trio. The creatures are impeccably designed. In a lot of the fantasy that you're going to see on this list, the real enemy, the real bad guy is a person, is humans, is a war, is like there's something happening. And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen in this series, but actually it was really refreshing that we had this element of monsters, of creatures, of animals that you couldn't buy, you couldn't bribe them off, you couldn't reason with them, you couldn't, you know, they were just intent on killing and causing destruction, and that made for such a fantastic fantasy read. The world felt so full, just so complete. I absolutely love, as I've already said, a fantasy romance with a dark, gritty, well-built fantasy world that just like enhances everything that happens. It makes everything make sense. It really just lies the baseline down for how I'm going to enjoy the book. If the world is built well, it's probably getting 5 stars from me. This one also had an element of the forbidden to the romance, which I really enjoyed. And I'm counting book 1, but actually within this, I'm also going to go a step further and say book 2 was even better than the first book. And I think that went even further to define my taste in fantasy books. It felt a little bit more high in its fantasy elements. It had an additional POV. We stepped away from the romance a little bit, which I do love the romance in this, but I actually really enjoyed taking that step back and understanding more history, more lore, more context of the world, getting different POVs, looking at different timelines. Like, it was just such a fantastic sequel and is exactly what I want to see with my fantasy romance. This one as well has a really interesting magic system. It has a well built out political system. Those are always things I enjoy. I'm kind of counting those as a wider world building element, but yeah, definitely, certainly in this one, I would say the political elements, like the treaties, the deals, the trade agreements, all made a lot of sense. A lot of the decisions that our characters make based on that made a lot of sense. This is top tier. This is god tier. This is one of my favourite fantasy romance books ever. It's written by Devney Perry, who I absolutely adore. Delicious, tasty, would eat again. 10 stars. I'm gonna jump to a good old classic on what is my favourite series of all time. I could not mention this. It's Throne of Glass. This was the OG. This set me off on my 70-30 fantasy romance split hype 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. This has all the things I've just mentioned about the other two. This is honestly the series I compare every fantasy romance series to. The balance of the fantasy elements in this and the romance, I'd actually say this probably strays a little bit further, like a 75 or an 80-20 split even. Particularly, in fact I was about to say particularly the earlier books, but no, just all of them. The thing I'm going to take from this that isn't the gritty world and the assassins and the shadows and the magic system and the reluctant romance and the slow burn, because this is definitely a slow burn, the enemies to lovers and all that kind of stuff. We've already mentioned all of that. The thing I'm going to say from this that defines my reading taste is its use of found family and side characters that I was caring for as much as the main one. I love Aline and Lorcan. I love Dorian. I love Manon. Kale can get fucked. Irene, fantastic character. I loved every single POV. I will say, sometimes with fantasy romance, there's too many POVs. I don't need as many. Why do I need to know what her handmaid is thinking 3 months ago in one POV, one chapter at the end of a book? I don't necessarily need to know. This, however, every single point of view I got in this book told me something I needed to know. It was all done so carefully. It gave me such a good understanding of what was happening, the world, again, the politics, the religion, etc, etc. Phenomenally done. One of my favourite things. I compare everything to this, but very specifically, I guess what I'm going to take from this to define my reading taste is my love of A, found family, but B, excellent side characters that I can follow along with, that I can follow their story, that I can root for, that I can cry for if they die. Like, that, for me, it really, again, fills the story out. It makes it feel like something that is really, really worth my time. And often, there's other series that do this really well as well, that when they have those fantastic side characters, and it doesn't feel so secluded, I guess, it's just 2 main POVs or 2 main characters. It really does something to the fantasy world for me. It really realizes a lot, but also like getting that story told through different perspectives and all the different challenges just makes the story feel really rich. And I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with all of them. I want to know what Lorcan had for breakfast. What did he eat? He's 7 foot. What is he having for breakfast? I would like to know. Let me know what you think Lorcan's eating for breakfast in the comments. I swear to God, if one of you puts a lead, I'm quitting. Next up, and this is another older fave, this is The Crowns of Nyaxia or The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. All of these are phenomenal. I'm also going to include in the series, so the 4 books that are out, I have read The Lion and the Deathless Dark, so I'm going to include that because that is the best one so far, mark my words. But I'm also going to include in here Six Scorched Roses and Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Just all of them are included in my recommendation of this book. Again, this has a lot of the things I spoke about. Great world building. This one, oh my god, it's gritty. If I had to specifically pick new things from this one that isn't some of the other things I love from the other ones, deadly trials and competitions. Oh my god, do they do it for me. I think it comes from my teenage love of the Hunger Games. Anything that feels like the Hunger Games meets this, sold immediately. I don't know what this is the Hunger Games meets, death and despair and blood and vampires, but I'm eating it up no matter what it is. Carissa Broadbent could write me a shopping list and I would give it 5 stars. The first duology is definitely my favourite. I loved book 3 and 4, but for some reason Rain and Araya stuck with me a bit more than Mish and Azar. However, book 5 is something else. You guys are not prepared. It is criminal that we don't have book 6 immediately. Like, trust me. Trust me. Things I love from this, deadly trials and competitions, we've mentioned. The other element of this is the element of the dark, the gothic, the atmosphere. There is elements of psychological horror-ish within this. It's very light, but it is within there. And I think just to build on what I said about Blood and Steel and having that really gritty backdrop, that fantasy world that is dark and dangerous and how that adds excitement and thrill and threat to the adventure that our characters go on, this also does that really well, but I would say it dials it up. This one has more body horror, has some gore, they are vampires, there is blood raining down everywhere. And those moments of the dark, those moments that almost feel like gothic and moody and atmospheric, I love in a lot of different things. This definitely doesn't do it the most. I would never say this is a gothic fantasy, for example, but it just has like little tasty tidbits of it in there that just makes my soul sing. It's a little twisted, it's a little wacky, it's dark, it's seductive, it's dangerous, it's spicy, and again, it's got that reluctant enemies to lovers romance that I would eat up in 100 different ways. It also has that like assassin-y, leather-clad, double dagger wielding female main character that I love, similar to Thea and Aelin. Those are 2 of my favourite things. Also added in this one. Oh, betrayal. How can I forget the betrayal? I love a last minute betrayal. I don't care actually if it happens halfway through the book, right at the beginning of the book, right at the end of the book, at the end of book 3. Betrayal in a book. I know some people hate it. Some people are like, oh, I was rooting for you. The author made me root for you and then you betrayed our main girl. No, I love it. Give me more betrayal. Bring back betrayal, I say. And this book is full of it. This book is full, the whole series, full of lying and deceiving and juicy betrayal, and it's so good. Breakfast, lunch and dinner, I absolutely would. Next up, and I actually think I read this at the end of last year, it's not been that long since I read this, but it very quickly skyrocketed into my favourite ever books. It's Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Again, lots of similarities I could say in here. I could say the reluctance to the romance, I could say the magic system, the way that Quicksilver works in this, very cool. I could say the politics, this fact that she lives on the outskirts where they have rationed water and she's stealing from the Queen's Reservoir, all of that, phenomenal. The reason this has made it onto this list though, to define my reading taste, is its humour and its banter, because this was hilarious. I like a good gritty serious fantasy, I really do, but I also like a nice gritty serious fantasy, particularly if it's got like vampires in it, that this one does. But also there's just like an idiot side character calling his god sword Simon. Like, I don't often find books funny. It takes a while for me to laugh, but also I feel like I have such a specific sense of humour. Like, some people hate Zodiac Academy. It tickles my sense of humour in exactly the right way. Absolutely adore that one. This one does something similar, but not to the same extent. It just has like the odd 1 or 2 moments, and there's also this banter between Kingfisher and Ceres right at the beginning and even into their relationship that really reminds me of me and my husband, who are the kind of people that totes in love but just ripping into each other all of the time. This is why I love this series. I love it for all the other reasons. I love it for the fact that it feels quite high and epic, particularly in book 2. I love it for the drama, I love it for the vampires, again I love it for this dark gritty world setting that all of these books have, but I love it for its humour, I love it for its banter, I love it for its balance between these moments of lightness and like literally me giggling and kicking my feet, and then the next page somebody's died in a horrific traumatic accident, you know what I mean? It's me all over. Adore this. It's the highs and the lows, you know? Lots of gritty dark fantasy can just be like low, 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 everything's sad, everybody's dying, everybody's being murdered. This, all of that, and then also Carrie and Swift. I love you. Why did I put off reading this for so long? So many people were telling me I was going to adore this and I ignored every single one of you. I am so sorry. And then we have 2 newer books. These are 2 fantasy books that I've read this year, but immediately fallen head over heels in love with. These are actually both first books I've read from these authors as well. The first one is, again, no surprise, Alex Astor's Starside. This is a bit of a culmination of lots of different things that I've already spoken about. So it has that kind of like deadly trials and competitions. It has a reluctant romance, has a gritty look. I could say the same thing for all of these books. I promise you, they're all really different. These are not all the same books, but the point of this video is that they define my reading taste, my personal taste. These are all things that fit within like the circle. This is like all the books, and this is like my reading tastes, and then there's like this bit which is where they cross over. These ones all happen to be in that little bit, a Venn diagram, is that what that's called? So I'm gonna have similar things to say about all of them because they exactly tickle my brain in the way they need to. And this does that too. Things that this did that I love. This is like a list of microtropes. I love it when they hate each other. They don't know why the other one necessarily hates them, but they are so convicted in their own hate for each other, and this did that. So for example, the female main character hates Harlan Raker, and we get bits of tidbits about why she hates him so much, and it is like burning hot, passionate hate, and he's just like, literally, why do you hate me? But I hate you too. He has his own passionate, burning hate for her, and you just like, it's not even like miscommunication, but the other person is just like, I would never do anything wrong, why do you hate me? That microtrope, phenomenal. I love the only one bed trope. Now there might have been some books on here with the only one bed, only one tent, only one horse, only one whatever you want to put. This has like the only one patch of land surrounded by a lake where the monsters can't cross water, so they both have to like huddle together after swimming across this lake on this teeny little, you know, it's got that, or it's got like the one cave trope. There's only one cave we could possibly both stay safe in. We've got to share this cave on opposite sides, of course. All of that, divine. And this also feels similar to Shield of Sparrows to me in that the world feels dangerous. So I'm not just talking about there being, you know, a big threat and a big war and assassins on the loose and like a rival faction that's after them. Yes, all of that, but the world itself almost seems poisonous. You can't trust the plants, you can't trust the animals, you can't trust the creatures, you can't trust people that are being nice to you. This, I would be so anxious if I lived in this world. More anxious. I would be more anxious than I already am if I lived in this world. You know when people say, what fantasy book would you like to jump right into? Not this one. And again, it is not scared like the Helen Scheurer to be bloody, to be gory, or like the Crowns of Myaxia to be a little bit barbaric and monstrous. And I really liked that. And I really liked the twist at the end. I love a twist at the end of the book when it's not a twist that makes me go, oh, now I have to wait so long to find out. I don't like that kind of twist. I like a twist at the end that I'm like, oh my god, the next book's gonna be so good. I can't believe they did that. That's what I like. That's what this has. And it does it really well. Last but not least, on the fantasy list, and currently my book of 2026, this isn't out at the time that I'm filming this. It's almost out by the time you're watching this. This is Steelborn by Taylor J. LaRue. Please go and pre-order this book. It's my favourite book of the year. It is like if I could take all my favourite bits about all of my favourite fantasy books, this one. Again, lots of things I loved about this. There's a reluctance romance. It's not really an enemies to lovers. It's kind of like an annoyances to lovers. And they are kind of immediately charged in this one. They immediately recognise, wow, he's hot AF. I would love to go there, but I absolutely hate his personality. Like, that's kind of the vibe of this, and I really, really bought into that. It wasn't really enemies to lovers, wasn't quite as strong as that, but it's a subcategory of enemies to lovers I do actually really enjoy. I love it when they're like, dagger to throat, hate each other, would absolutely kill each other, but I also like it when they're just like, ugh, why are you so hot, but your personality is so bad. Like that, again, phenomenal. I loved it. There was a sense of adventure in this one though. A lot of these books have adventures in it. I feel the same with Shield of Sparrows. Anything that's got like a journey to go on, we're off on an adventure, that's what I want to feel. It isn't in all of the ones behind me, but like having that sense of adventure really immediately sells me. The fact that this had like swashbuckling pirates and she's running up and down the starboard side. I've said this before, I don't know much about ships, so just assume I'm talking absolute sense about how ships work. She's pulling sails and running around the deck and sliding up this and running to the edge of the, like, just that swashbuckling sense of adventure, sneaking in the shadows. Are they gonna find us? Also, there's a kraken that we need to kill. Great. That's what I want. I want adventures. I want to feel like I'm running around the ship with you. Very intrigued by the side characters in this one as well. It hasn't gone quite as far yet for me. I think it's going to in book 2 to introduce those side characters with a bit more depth, but I'm definitely intrigued by them. It's done a really good job of like just sprinkling in a couple of side characters. I'm like, oh, why are you so moody? What's going on there? What trauma have you got in your backstory? I can't wait to dive in. And I think the other thing I really want to mention from this about what defines my reading taste is a really well considered magic system. I love how the magic works in this. I found the magic system quite new, slightly familiar enough that it didn't feel like, oh my god, what is happening? How does that work? But it just felt fresh. It felt very unique. I love the way this works. I loved like the growth of that magic system as well, where we're kind of drip fed bits of information because we're, you know, finding out from one person's perspective. All that happens. I love the traumatic backstory. Don't know what it is. Give me a female character in a book with a traumatic backstory. Everybody she loves has possibly died. Like, also, yeah, it just really gears me up to enjoy the story. And I certainly did with Stillborn. Please, please, please. For me, or not for me, whatever reasoning you need, give this a pre-order. I think this is going to be one of the most popular, biggest, most incredible fantasy romances of the year. Get on the hype train with me when it releases. It is chef's kiss. That is all of the fantasy romance books. If you're a fantasy romance girly and you're taking off here, that's fine. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to stick around, I've got more romance books to talk about though. All of these, again, are going to have similar things to say about them. But hopefully, if you're a romance fan, there might be something on here that you haven't read yet that you might enjoy. These are all super hyper specific, by the way, because I don't really read tons of romance. It's probably 15 to 20% of what I read. But there's some like books I would go to war for in this next category. The first two on this list are by the same author, and I thought about just including one book from this list on this author, but honestly this author is the reason that I read romance, so I went for my two favourites. This is Deep End and Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood, both very different, and I wanted to mention both of them. I read The Love Hypothesis as a joke. As a joke. It was so popular when I first came across it a few years ago, and I was like, surely it can't be that good. Duh, it's a contemporary romance. It's just like the real world. How exciting could it be? Thrilling. Let me tell you, The Love Hypothesis changed the way I looked at the romance genre forever, and there has been no going back. Ali Hazelwood, and I think I've read everything that's been traditionally published by Ali Hazelwood now, even her stuff that's more paranormally, even her audiobook only stuff, her little mini novellas, and I've loved every single bit. There's something about the way she's so witty. I love a romance with wit. I want it to have like smart humour in it. I want to feel intelligent reading the humour. I want to be like, ha ha ha, that was so funny, and it's because I understand the fun scientific stuff. Like, it's witty, it's clever. The way the romance is structured is always really, really well done. Considering the fact I've read like a ton of Ali Hazelwood romances, I don't know how they all manage to be so different, but they do, and I eat up every single one. Two Can Play is actually my favourite thing I've ever read from Ali Hazelwood. This one is a novella. It's quite Christmassy. It's set at like a snowed in cabin kind of vibe where two rival game designers have to come together and like work together to bid for this big project. This also tied in my love of gaming and other nerdy activities. My husband's also a big gamer, so this kind of tied in like some of my other interests outside of reading, and also an author that I love, and it's kind of just slowly crept its way up. I was like, oh yeah, that was really good. Now anyone asks me like, who's your favourite Ali Hazelwood, I'm like, it's Two Can Play actually. Like, now I think about it, it is Two Can Play. I loved this. It's perfectly paced, the romance is great, as I said, the humour is witty, they're well crafted. I just think these are really solid romance books. Every time Ali Hazelwood write something, I'm immediately pre-ordering it, and I don't pre-order many romance books because often we just get standard paperbacks that I can pick up whenever. This one, I feel like a lot of people haven't read this one yet because it's not one of her full-length novels. Give this a go. This was really, really good. I enjoyed this, and they're like, this is what I love about it. It's the forced proximity. I love that in my fantasy books as well. The forced proximity in this, delicious. The other Ali Hazelwood that I love the most is Deep End, and I really wasn't, even in like the first 20-30% of this book, I really wasn't expecting to love this one as much as I had like Love on the Brain. Don't know why this one has stood out to me so much. I think it's because it blends a bit of sports romance in there as well. This is still one of her like STEMinist novels, and it has that kind of women in STEM vibe to it, but this also has an element of sports romance, which you'll see on this list. There is another sports romance on here that I love, and I didn't realise that I was going to be a sports romance girly. If, like me, you're like, I don't like sports, I don't watch sports, because I don't. My husband is really into football. I'm not a big sports person, never have been, never. Like, the only way I'm running is if somebody is chasing me. Like, that's the only exercise I'm going to be doing. This was really good, but also there was something tender about this. There was something real about this. There was something complicated about the way these two found each other, and something complicated about the relationship panning out that felt really authentic and real. That is a big theme running through most of these, not some of them, but most of them. I love that kind of, I could see this being my friend, or I could see this being somebody I know going through this, like something that just feels real, wholesome, authentic, rather than like super cheesy or mega spicy or like insta-lovey. That is what I really gravitate towards in my romance. This is a fantastic example of that. Another classic, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised to see, the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy is absolutely up there as a romance book defining my reading tastes. This was the first sports romance I ever read, and actually I am grateful to this series for introducing me to the sports romance genre, and also the fact that I had such a good time with this, because it then spiraled to me enjoying things like Deep End and picking up like Hannah Grace's Icebreaker. This, I just love the drama. I just love drama-filled romance. Like, this is every day. These are people in college or people at work or people just living their lives. There's something really exciting about this series for me. It isn't just like mundane, they're going to classes, they're seeing each other between. There's something exciting about Garrett Graham and his career. This also has the fake dating trope. I think this is one of the first things I read with the fake dating trope in, which I adore. It's one of my favourite things to gravitate towards nowadays. I also like the fact that even though this one did feel a little bit easy and cheesy and breezy, it did have more serious subject matter and did talk about things that feel very relevant to like many people that would be reading this. I also love it when like he falls first or he falls harder. I feel like we get that in here, and it's so tasty. It's so funny because if this was real life, I would be like, ooh, a playboy who's reformed. I bet he hasn't, but it's fiction. And I'm like, Garrett Graham is a baby angel and he could do no wrong, you know? Like, that's where I'm at. I love the whole series, but the first one is definitely my favourite. I think my second favourite is the one, it's a second chance romance one where, it's so funny that I don't remember the boys' names. It's John Logan, I think. It's the one where he ends up in her student room and then like kind of fobs her off and then like is begging the whole year afterwards to get back in her good graces. That one, also delicious. I love a man who begs, you know? Next up is something a little different and a whole lot less wholesome than the rest of them. It's K.M. Morinova's Dark Forces series. I had to include a dark romance in here, guys. I do love a dark romance. There was actually a period of time where all I read for pretty much 6 months straight was dark and taboo romances. I still love loads of them. I think because I've been particularly on a fantasy hype, the romance I've been reading has been less, so I've been reading less dark romance because I enjoy quite a few subgenres. But this one is an absolute standout for me, and again, I think it comes from like the action in this one, the thrill, the element of like the training or the running around or the threat of death. Like, there's something exciting about dark romances, and particularly this one, that I devour. I think it's because they feel almost like a midway point. Like, these are less realistic, at least for me. I don't know, I'm not going to be hired for any covert underground murdering missions, I don't think. If anyone's looking to hire me for that, I'm probably going to be terrible at it. But also the fact that the romance feels a bit out there, a bit wacky. These two are deranged, you know? There's something fantastical about it, even though it's not a fantasy. But I also just really enjoyed the setup of this one. This one feels a little bit different. I haven't read any other dark military romances, and actually I love the entire series. My favourites of the set are, I always get the wrong order, but Your Knife, My Back, Your Blade, My Heart, whichever way around it is. That Dark Forces duet, I adored that one. That was super wacky, super out there, really had a good time with it. I also like the fact that the spice is dialed up on a lot of these, but like particularly within the dark romance, often the spices extra spicy. There was 2 dark romances. If I could have 8 romances to include in this, something I love that I haven't really touched on is dark academia elements. So if I could include another one, maybe an honourable mention goes to Nocticardia by Kerry Lake, because that is a delicious dark romance. Some of the other tropes I've spoke about, like those elements of like body horror and gore and this gritty world, but dark academia, if there's ever a dark academia, dark forces novel, chef's kiss is going to be one of my favourite things. Just to do a full 180 and mention possibly the most wholesome romance I've ever read in my life, and one of my favourites, it's First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I like a lot of B.K. Borison, but this series, the Heartstring series, is by far my favourite, and that is completely down to how authentic, real, wholesome, relatable this feels. This series follows characters who don't feel like camera ready or picture perfect, or like they don't seem completely to be like fictional characters. They feel real. If I was reading this and it was a true story, or they made it into a film and I was watching it, it would feel a little bit like, again, somebody that I know went through this, or a friend, or it's like the cute meet cute of some girl I got chatting to at work. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is how this feels. And I like the fact that it seems to feature real people, you know? It's people with families and family drama. It's people that don't feel always really confident and do have their own kind of things to work through. And that, for me, this is possibly the most realistic, authentic, wholesome thing I've ever read. But I devoured it. I loved it. I remember reading this and just being so surprised by how much it really got to me. And I like book 2 as well, but I think of the 2, the first one is still my favourite. And then the last 2 books I don't have my hands on because I can see them. I've actually been packing a lot because I'm moving soon. So you're just gonna have to do with like an image that I'm gonna insert here. These 2 I like for very similar reasons, and these 2 summarise one of my most read romance genres ever. The first one is the Indigo Ridge series by Devney Perry. I told you, I love a Devney Perry. I was almost going to hint that there's more coming up, but I didn't want to spoil it for you all. This was the first romantic suspense that I ever read, and I didn't know romantic suspense was a thing. I don't read a lot of thrillers. My thrillers are things like this, where they have gorgeous, delicious romance, some of those flawed characters, some of those kind of more authentic, realistic feeling situations, but then that like 20-30% of it is just like thrill and suspense and maybe a little bit of like slasher horror. Like, there's just something within these that really like ramps up the romance, and it just makes it so much more enjoyable for me to read. I don't know why these things particularly tickle my brain in exactly the right way, but as soon as I'm like, oh, there's somebody stalking her, great, or like I'm like, oh, there's been murders in the town, I wonder what's gonna happen next, like it helps me drive through that story so much quicker. I think it's because I'm buying in not just to one part of the story, like I'm buying into the romance, right? I want these 2 characters to get together, I want them to be happy, I want them to forget their past trauma and love each other and maybe hold hands, and then also I want to know what's going on with this like weird family member or like this person that's being too nosy. Like, that also helps drive this forward, and I have really found a lot of love in the romantic suspense genre. I love this one so much. This is actually what introduced me to it. And on a similar note, also Catherine Cowell's Sparrow Falls series. This one I've read more recently. I think of the two I do prefer Devney Perry, but this one I think actually dialed up the thrill and suspense. Not all of the Devney Perry ones are super high suspense. This one I feel like definitely has some more thrilling elements in there, but I don't know if that's maybe because I've just read it more recently. I had to mention both of them. I couldn't pick between the two, so I've just had to put them both in the video. So we'll just say that it's like 7.5 romance books that define my reading tastes. I think this pulls across to all things that I read. I do really enjoy an element of the storyline that has some element of not knowing, of some suspense. Again, it's like the betrayal in the fantasy of not knowing what's going to happen or who's going to do it or who's going to be to blame for a thing. Like that is part of it, like not knowing who to trust. It keeps me on my toes and I really, really thoroughly enjoy being kept on my toes when I'm reading. I think 'cause I read a lot, it can be, you know, books can feel quite predictable, especially if they have like recognizable tropes and I'm like, oh, this always happens with that trope. So actually when things can surprise me and shock me, immediately I want more of that. I hope you got some new recommendations. Some of those books feels like ones that I talk about all the time, but there's definitely some in there that I haven't spoke about in a long time, or they're newer to me, or I maybe haven't told you exactly why I like them. You might have seen them in passing. So hopefully you can now determine if we have similar reading tastes and if any of those are books that you might enjoy. Before you go, in the comments, let me know what books define your reading taste. You can give me a list of 7 if you like, or you can just give me like the 1 or 2 most that define you. Like put them in the comments, I want to see them. And before you leave, I'm really working on getting to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm new to YouTube, I do bookish content elsewhere, but I'm really, really enjoying YouTube as a platform and I really want to do more things here. So you could help me get to my goal of 5,000 subscribers by dropping a subscribe on this video. But that's all I have for you today. So other than that, I will see you in the next one.